Some people are born at the top. They have it all: money, status, opportunities. But one day, they lose everything. Not because of anyone else, but because of themselves. This is the story of Elia, a young woman who once had it all, then fell to rock bottom. But instead of giving up, she began a journey no one expected. A journey to reclaim her luck. A journey to rediscover who she truly was. Along the way, she'll meet lost souls, hearts quietly waiting for an answer. And in the end, she'll realize that luck was never somewhere far away. It's always been there, just waiting for us to be brave enough to turn back and claim it. Don't look away from this story, because maybe you're on the same journey as Elia. Elia used to be a symbol of light. Born into a wealthy family, she was the only daughter of a self-made financial tycoon, a man who had built his empire from nothing. When he passed away, every bit of fortune, fame, and power was handed down to Elia. She was only 23. People called her a golden child, someone favored by the universe. But few knew that Elia didn't know how to live without someone to guide her. At glamorous parties, she smiled brightly. But when the lights went out and everyone left, she would sit alone in a vast, empty mansion, staring into the silence and feeling a hollow nothingness she couldn't fill. Gradually, she began to spiral. Each day became an escape from the feeling of not being enough, an escape from her father's enormous shadow, an escape from herself. She made reckless investments, was taken advantage of, lost all her shares, and fell deep into debt. In just 3 years, Elia went from having everything to nothing but shame and a name people now whispered as the symbol of a downfall. One rainy afternoon, as debt notices piled high on her desk, Elia sat frozen. No tears, no words. She just felt like an empty shell. No family, no friends, no one by her side. Until an older woman, her father's longtime friend, came to see her. She didn't scold. She didn't preach. She simply sat down, held Elia's hand, and said gently, "You didn't lose your luck. Or rather, your luck left because you walked away from yourself. But luck doesn't wander far. It's waiting for you to find your way back. If there's even a flicker of courage left in you, stand up. Start walking." Elia was silent for a long time. And then she stood up. For the first time in years, she truly wanted to move. Not to run away, but to find something again. Maybe it was luck, or maybe it was her. Elia didn't bring much with her. Just an old backpack, a few coins in her pocket, and a promise that she would walk, she would search, and she wouldn't give up. No one saw her off. No applause. No spotlight. Only her footsteps, slow, solitary, but filled with resolve. She didn't know where she was going. No map, no destination. But somehow, deep down, she believed that if her heart stayed true, luck would hear her calling. And so Elia walked through dusty cities, across empty fields, through cold nights spent beneath unfamiliar rooftops. Every day was a battle with herself. Hunger, exhaustion, loneliness. And yet, strangely, she didn't want to stop. One night, deep in the forest, she had a dream. In it, she saw a woman, a face as familiar as her own, collapsed on top of a mountain, hands covering her face, sobbing silently. She was surrounded by thick, gray smoke, as if every hope she ever had been burned away. Elia jolted awake, sweat cold on her forehead. Something inside her whispered. That woman was the embodiment of her luck, or perhaps the forgotten part of her own soul. She knew then she couldn't turn back. Wherever that mountain was, she had to reach it. Along the way, Elia began to meet other lost souls. A dying fox at the edge of the forest, a lush garden bearing only bitter fruit, and a man living alone in a grand mansion, with empty eyes and a silence too loud to ignore. Each one carried a question. Each one needed an answer. And strangely, each of them believed that Elia's luck might be the key to their healing. Elia never made promises, but she listened, and she carried their questions with her, as if they had become part of her purpose. Because maybe luck wasn't just something she needed to find. Maybe it was something she could offer. if she was brave enough to walk this path to the very end. At last, after days of climbing mountains, crossing rivers, and wearing herself thin, body and soul, Elia stood before the mountain from her dream. It was barren. The wind howled like it wanted to tear the sky apart. No trees, no life, just a skeletal peak wrapped in cold silence. She began to climb, step by step, slipping on loose stone, the wind slashing her face like it was testing her. Do you really want to meet your luck again? At the summit, Elia froze. There she was, just like in a dream. A woman lay face down on the ground, hair tangled, fists clenched into the dirt, crying without sound. She wore the same dress Elia had on. A tiny scar marked her left cheek, just like Elia's. And when she looked up, Elia locked eyes with herself. "I am your luck," the woman whispered, voice faint but laced with defiant grace. "I walked beside you once. I was the light in your choices, the wind behind every open door. But then you turned away. You ignored me. You rejected yourself, and I was left behind." Elia dropped to her knees, hands trembling. "I know, I was wrong, but I'm here now, not for money, not for fame, but because I can't live like a shadow anymore." Luck was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. "Then listen closely," she said, her eyes suddenly sharp. "You didn't come here alone. You carry with you cries for help. And because you were brave enough to come all this way, I will give you 3 prophecies. The lonely man," she said, "will find happiness when he dares to open his heart and marry the one who truly stirs it. The bitter garden is not cursed by soil or hands, but by the hidden poison flowing in the stream beneath it. And the dying fox will live again if it accepts water from the hand of one who once made mistakes. Don't forget," she whispered one last time, "you didn't come here just to find me. You came to remember you are me. Luck never left you. You just forgot to look back." Then, like wind breaking into mist, she disappeared, and Elia stood alone at the mountaintop, in utter silence, with a heart that, for the first time in years, began to beat again. Elia descended the mountain with a feeling she couldn't quite name. It wasn't relief. It wasn't the rush of triumph. It was something quieter, a strange stillness, as if she had stepped inside herself and found something that had been lost for a very long time. For the first time in years, she no longer felt like she was running. She was returning. The first person she went back to was the lonely man, the one who lived in a grand mansion, yet always carried a deep, silent sorrow in his eyes. She looked at him and spoke gently. "You don't need to chase happiness in luxury anymore. Luck told me, true happiness will come when you have the courage to live honestly, to follow your heart, love the one who makes it tremble, and marry that person." The man stared at her for a long moment. Then for the first time, he smiled, truly smiled. And before she left, he placed an old key into her hand. "If you don't mind, this mansion is yours whenever you need rest, because the one who awakens another's heart deserves a place to breathe." Next, Elia returned to the bitter garden. She found a farmer and said, "It's not the trees, not the soil, it's the water. The stream you've been using to nourish this land contains hidden minerals that poison the roots. Change your source, or cleanse the one you have." The farmer was stunned. He tested the water immediately, and just as she said, the stream was tainted. Overjoyed, he took her to a secret vault buried beneath an old tree, where he had hidden a trove of gold. "A gift," he said, "for the one who sees deeper than the surface." Elia bowed her head in gratitude. This time, she didn't refuse, because she understood. To give more, one must first learn to receive. Finally, she returned to the ailing fox, the small creature lying weak by the roadside. She knelt beside it, opened her flask, and whispered, "I'm not perfect, but I've had the courage to make things right. If you believe in that, drink this." The fox stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, it stepped forward, took one sip. Its eyes lit up, its wounds began to fade, and without a sound, it stood and disappeared into the forest, as if it had never fallen. Elia sat quietly, watching the leaves swirl and dance in the golden light of the setting sun. And for the first time, She smiled. No longer a girl searching for luck, but a woman who had become it. When Elia returned to the village she once left in despair, no one recognized her anymore. Not because her face had changed, but because her eyes had. They no longer carried that hollow, drifting emptiness. Instead, they held a quiet fire, like a small flame in the heart of a winter night. Humble but unyielding, she didn't bring back treasure. She didn't return with fame. What she carried were 3 stories, and 3 lessons no book could ever teach. That happiness isn't found in what others admire, but in the courage to live true to your heart. That bitter outcomes aren't always the result of mistakes. Sometimes they come from hidden roots we've never dared to examine, and that even a dying soul can rise again, as long as there's someone, kind enough, real enough, to reach out with open arms. When Elia left, she had nothing. When Elia came back, she was the one who opened doors, not just for herself, but for everyone she met. Luck, it turns out, was never some fleeting force waiting out in the distance. It was the good within her, waiting to be awakened, waiting to shine, the moment she dared to face herself. She no longer dreamed of chasing luck, because now she understood. Luck was every step she dared to take, every time she stumbled and stood up again, every moment she almost gave up, but kept going anyway. Sitting beneath the old tree at the edge of the village, Elia looked out toward the horizon. The wind brushed gently through her hair, and in that quiet moment she smiled. A smile no one saw, but enough to soften the world. Because maybe the most beautiful kind of luck is when we become a small light for someone else. And in that light, we realize happiness was never at the destination. It was in the journey itself, where we dare to go, dare to lose, and dare to change. You see, we often think of luck as something we have to chase, something far away, something only the truly fortunate ever touch. But Elia's story reminds us of one simple truth. Back-end index pointing right, luck doesn't wait at the end of the road. Luck is how we choose to walk it. When we have the courage to leave our comfort zone, when we dare to face our own mistakes, when we learn to listen, to heal, and when we give without expecting anything in return, that's when luck arrives. Not loud, not grand, but gentle and steady, like sunlight slipping through the leaves, like a heartbeat returning to life. Because in the end, luck isn't something you find. Luck is something you become. Thank you for listening to this story. And if it touched even the smallest part of you, hold on to that light and keep walking, because your journey is still unfolding.